Hello, friends. I'm so excited to be with you here today to talk to you a little bit about email marketing. Well, you may not be as excited as I am about email marketing, but I hope you're going to learn some things today that may change your mind about email marketing and help you understand why this is so important for you to be using in your business. Let me just give you a little bit of background. Several years ago, many years ago, while I was the director of marketing for DFW Child Magazine, which was the third largest parenting magazine in the country, I spent hours and hours and hours on our email list. We had, about 50,000 people on our email list. And it was honestly the thing that our advertisers bought into the most. They love being on our email list because they knew our email list was hitting a very specific audience. Okay. So we actually sold space on our email audience list. That means we had to keep it very clean. We had to deliver a lot of value, and we had to make sure that the right people were on it. Okay. So I learned a lot about email marketing and keeping this clean. And here's the thing. We sent an email every single day. That's a lot, right? And our audience ate it up. They loved it because they truly wanted the information. And we delivered value in every single email. And then we had also an ask or an advertising piece or something we were promoting in every single email as well. But the balance of the two kept it really healthy, if you will, and didn't make it seem like we were overly promotional. We were always sharing something very interesting to them as parents. Okay. So when we're talking about email marketing, understand this, that social media is very important in your marketing strategy, but so is email. So social is like the top of your funnel. We're going to dive into this today, but you definitely want to be taking people from just your social media following to your email list. All right. Let me share a story with you about one of our biggest clients. She, before we started working with her, she had hundreds of thousands of followers, okay, on her Instagram and her TikTok. Well, she had something, Meta shut her down for some reason, and she lost everything on her Instagram and Facebook page. It was terrible. And she did not have an email list built up. She still had her TikTok page, but she didn't have her Instagram, and she had to start completely over. And we didn't have that email base to work with when we took her on as a client. So we're now rebuilding it all from scratch. So I'd love to prevent that for you by helping you build an email list right now. Okay. So why does email marketing matter? Well, let me just throw some amazing statistics to you. Email is considered just the largest marketing platform. I mean, think about this. There are 4 billion email users. I mean, do you know anybody who doesn't have an email? No. And over half of them are checking their email first thing in the morning and as much as 20 times daily. Now, you will not reach everyone through email, but you don't reach everyone on social media either. We don't own our social media channels. That is all at the whim of these social media platforms, but you do own your email list. And here's what I know. And because this has happened to Brooklyn and I recently, we've definitely seen a dip in our social media algorithm, to how our content is shown. So that's fascinating to us as we were cruising along doing really well, and all of a sudden things changed, not because our content changed, not because we changed, but because the algorithm changed a little bit. So we're getting a little bit less views. It'll change again, not really worried about it, but it's just a great example of how you can't always control what's being delivered to your audience through social media. Okay. So not only is email the largest platform, but when you have email, you can continue to communicate with your audience, even if social media gets a little bit weird. 6.8%, and that's a high number. It's on the high side of our social media followers actually see our content. But our email open rate average is well over 40%. So you can see how it does, even though not everybody opens your email. And when we were at the magazine, we were looking for a rate of about 16%. because the more people you have on your list, the lower your percentage will be. But 16% was a very healthy open rate for us. Okay. So you'll see that, your email has a little bit better rate of return on your followers when you deliver your content through email. And here's another interesting thing to consider. You've already paid for that lead. So let me explain what I mean by that. If you got them through an ad that you ran, you literally paid for them to trade their email to you. But even if you didn't, you've probably offered them some kind of value to get on your email list, where they were signing up for a contest, or you were delivering a lead gen offer. You've already done the work to trade your value for their email, so they're now on your list. So your investment is very low because you've already paid for that. So now you're not constantly paying for ads or anything to get a new lead. You have this lead. Nurture them. Okay. So hopefully that's convicting to you to really want to build your email list. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, but social media really is your top of the funnel. You want to get them into your store, enrolled in your program, whatever. You're starting here. You want them to learn to like you. So at this point, you're just kind of building interest and piquing their curiosity about what you're about, making them laugh, and keeping them, getting them in the community, right? And then through some of your content and social media, you're also going to want to start to nurture them. But you want to do that by now converting them into email list people, okay? And then through email is typically where you can convert more into working with you. So you turn those followers into customers. You're going to do both of these kind of funnels through your social media and your email marketing, but just know that in general, in your overall strategy, think about it this way. Social media is kind of top of funnel. You want to drive them to your email list, where then you can continue to convert them. Okay. So how do you get people on your list? Well, there's several ways, but let's kind of talk about our options. Wherever your website is, you have an option. You may not have ever seen it before, but I promise you it's there, to do a website pop-up or an embedded form in your website. Okay. So you can do a pop-up, you can do a form, you can do all kinds of things in your website where it says, get this by signing up. Okay. You're asking for their first name and their email address, and then you're going to deliver something. We call it a lead gen offer to them in exchange for their email. You can also just say, sign up for our newsletter, because, that's where the cool kids are, or something like that. So you don't have a lead gen yet, but we'll talk about that as we go through this. But you can create a little website pop-up or sign up form on your website itself. And that is a great place to start to capture their email address. Okay. And then we'll talk about what happens next in just a second. Lead gen offer. I touched on this, but this is where you create a lead generating offer. Okay, so trade value for their email. Let's say you have a guide or a checklist, or maybe you have a video class or a master class or a workshop tutorial, something you can give them of value that feels like a lot of value for free. We just created our engagement equation ebook that we are now using as our primary lead gen offer. And it's on a pop-up on our website. We also use it as our call to action on our social media. But we share it everywhere. It's our QR code on here. So we even have it as our QR code on our phone. So when we meet somebody, we can say, oh, download our ebook. We are giving amazing value in this huge workbook that helps people understand who their avatar is, what their messaging should be, and then what platform should they be on. So what social media platform. So we put a lot of effort into this free tool that we know will help people in their own business, gives them a ton of information, guides them, but it also gives us that like, know, and trust factor, that credibility, and we capture their emails. So then we can create a new relationship with them. Another way to get people on your list is to talk about it all the time on your social media. So your call to action should be to direct followers to that lead gen offer. So if you have this one thing that you're kind of funneling people into, if you have this one, like right now, our ebook, we should be talking about it all the time on our social. So the social call to action platform should be to join our email list, get the ebook. Okay. That should be a constantly repeated action on your social media. Well, then what happens after they join your list? Okay, well, this is where it gets really fun. Now they're in. They've raised their hand and said, yes, I want that. That sounds pretty awesome. So now you want to deliver that lead gen value to them. No matter what email program you are using, you have the ability to set up a workflow or a sequence. Okay. So as soon as someone joins through this sign up form, okay, they are tagged a certain way. And as soon as that tag is initiated, now they're generated a lead gen value email. So that point of the thing that you promised them is now going to show up in their inbox. Okay. They're going to click on that. You're going to say, download our new ebook. They sign up and then they're going to check their email. And here's the ebook that we've promised them. Okay. And then after they get that delivery of the lead gen, the lead gen email, then you want to start a welcome sequence with them. All of this can be done through your email platform. I will tell you, like for us, we use Kajabi as our email platform because that's where our whole website system is based. But my favorite is Flowdesk. Flowdesk makes this so easy through forms and workflows. Okay. That is the easiest one. MailChimp is also fairly simple. So whatever one you're using, they all have this ability, and you may have to do a little bit of tutorial, but there is a couple of classes on our Learning Locker where we walk through very specifically how to create a lead gen value and how to deliver this value through your email. So we'll dive into that if you want to in those two separate classes. I'm going to give you the screenshot of those at the end of this so you can go back and revisit and kind of dive deeper into that. But just know that once I've joined your list, you've got to deliver that value that you promised, and then you should start an email welcome sequence. Okay, so what happens in this email welcome sequence? Well, what I suggest to keep it really simple is 3 emails over 3 days. Okay, so let's talk about these. This is really fun. Okay, you're going to spend some time writing this and creating a welcome sequence. Okay, the first email is I see you. The second one is I can help you. And the third one is join me. Okay. So I see you. This is like an acknowledgement of the reader. Okay. What sort of challenges are they facing? And remind them why they joined your list. Okay. So maybe on day 0, okay, let's say day 0, when they have signed up for the list and they've gotten your free ebook or free lead gen offer, whatever it is you've given them. The next day, they're going to get their first welcome sequence email, okay? And you're going to say, remember, you joined my list because this. So use the ebook to help you accomplish these things. I love to also say, acknowledge what their pain is, okay? So at this point, you're just trying to make them feel good and they're like they're in the right place. So I'm going to walk you through a photography example in just a second, but just know that in this first one, you're trying to make them feel good, know they're in the right place. You're not selling them on anything, no call to action. It's just that, hey, I know you've got this problem, reminding you that I sent you this ebook or whatever your lead gen offer is to help you, and you're in the right place, okay? The second day, they get an email that says, hey, I can help. All right. Reinforce to them that they've made a great decision for joining your list and share your brand promise. Make them feel like they are part of something special, like they're an insider because they're now on your list. Acknowledge their problem again, but this time add why you are the person who can help them overcome that problem or help them get closer to their goal. Why are you uniquely qualified to help them? Again, you're not really pitching anything. You're just sort of reminding them that they're here and that you're so glad they're here. The third email is join me. Now is when you can present them with an opportunity. So here's the next best step for you and how I can help you reach that goal. Okay. You can have a soft call to action in this. You can also add a second like sequence of more emails if you have one. Okay. So if you want to get through the welcome sequence and then they move into kind of a pitch sequence, you could do that. Or you could just say, join me for something kind of easy and simple. Maybe like join a Facebook group community or download a resource or a wait list. It can certainly have a call to action. Just maybe not like spend $500 with me on something on that third welcome sequence. That could be for a different kind of launch or sequence. All right. But this is just welcoming them into your list. You can definitely use social proof in that third email. That is where I love to share a story. Okay. So let me kind of show you a good example, kind of talk through this. Let's say you're a photographer and you are someone who has created a program where people can sign up for these lifestyle photo days. Okay. So they can book like an hour and you get a whole bunch of things accomplished. It's very affordable. It's very efficient for you. And you have certain days of the quarter where you do these batching events. Okay. So maybe what you say in your first email is, hey, I know I've heard that from a lot of my clients that they need new headshots, they need new branding photos, but they don't know how to achieve those amazing, beautiful photos that they see other people have. I mean, because when they get photos taken, they never look the way that they think they should, or they're not really happy with them or the way they turned out. They don't like what they wear. They don't like their expressions. They don't really feel like them. I see you. I know this is a problem. And I also know that it can be very cost prohibitive to keep buying these expensive photo sessions when you don't really like the results. I totally understand. Okay. So that's kind of what your first email is. It's like acknowledging that this is the common things that I hear from my clients. This will resonate with them. Don't sell them just yet. Just let them know that you're in the right place and I got you. And you can even say something like, stay tuned. I've got something you're going to love. Okay. In your second email, maybe your messaging kind of looks like, well, hey, it's time to get hopeful because you too can have amazing brand photos that you love. I understand your concerns about cost, about not loving the end product. And here's why I developed my brand photo sessions for entrepreneurs, because I was tired of seeing beautiful shots that people paid a fortune for and bad photos that were affordable. I have a solution, and guess what? Now you're part of the Lucky Girl Club, so stay tuned. You're going to love what I've got coming. Okay, so now you're kind of building anticipation, again, making them feel special and seen and heard and telling them how you can help. In the third email, I would share a story of a client, like maybe Amy, who had a before picture of an image that she got from another photographer that she did not love. Okay, but share how Amy then found you. She booked a photo session and now hear her results and show one of your photos and then a little testimony from Amy. And then share how your clients can get the same results by joining maybe your wait list or getting your calendar of when you are going to do these next photo sessions. So all you're asking them to do is get the calendar or sign up for a list to get the calendar or whatever. But it's not like hey, book it today. It's like, let's just take that next step together. Okay. Okay, so this is the thought. The 3 emails over 3 days, that is your welcome sequence. Here's a couple of pro tips for this welcome sequence. If you can, tag this person as a new subscriber and then remove that tag after like 1 or 2 weeks. so you don't have to start sending them your weekly newsletter and promotional launch sequences if they've just joined. So I think not every single email program has the ability for you to remove a tag after a time frame, but if you can, this is a good idea. It's a good rule of thumb, so that they just sign up and all of a sudden they're getting a launch sequence the next day, because that just happens when you're running it for your whole email list, right? So if you can kind of keep them in that honeymoon phase for the first week or so, where they're just getting their welcome sequence, that's a good idea. Okay. And then how long should the emails be? I get asked this question a lot. But honestly, there's really no rule for length. What I have seen is that we have equal open rates and read rates and click rates on both short and long emails. I think it's good to vary it. But there really isn't such a thing as that email is too long, but there's definitely a thing for emails are too boring. So there's no shortage of crappy content on the internet. So don't do that. You can tell a story. You can keep it interesting. You can keep it long. You can keep it short, but you definitely want to mix it up and think about it this way. Short emails are great when action is needed. So short emails do generate more clicks because it's like a call to action, click here. So it's easy, right? But when you are writing a sequence and you're kind of telling a story and you want to build some anticipation, you want to build some credibility, those longer emails are great. The one thing you don't want to do is have really long paragraphs. You want to keep them sort of short and punchy. And make sure that it's easy for people to scan, but you will find more engagement and more qualified clicks from some of those longer emails. So mix them up and do both. Okay, let's talk about email content strategy. This is going to refer mostly to like your predictable newsletter type content. Let's talk about that. If you've been with us as a student for a while, you know our buckets concept. We talk about all the time. The most human company wins. You've got to share a little bit of your personality in with your content. Okay. You don't have to get overly personal, but you want to show your personality. Well, email content is exactly the same as your social media strategy. In fact, you want to repurpose your content. You're not going to have email content here and social media strategy here. They are one and the same. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. So hang on, but really think about this. It can be repurposed in two ways. When you are making your social media content calendar, decide which post would also be a good email. Okay. And maybe you have, let's say you have 16 posts for a month that you want to make on social media. You could go through and figure out which 4 would make the best emails. And then you can take that almost like exact same content, or if you're doing a video, you can type it out and put that exact same content in your weekly email. Okay. Or you can reverse engineer it, do it a little bit differently, and start with more of the hairball strategy content that you've probably taken the hairball strategy, the digital hairball strategy from Brooklyn, where she starts with a blog, YouTube, or podcast. It's kind of like what your hero content is. It's this big thing, where you're writing a long blog, YouTube, or podcast, and then you repurpose that piece of content, kind of becomes your theme for the week, and then you create your social media content from that. Well, your email is basically just delivering your blog, YouTube, or podcast. If you're on our email list, you see that. We publish a blog every Thursday, and you get an email that gives you a little snippet of the blog and then the option to read more. And then that drives our social media content for that week. Okay. So it's not more work. It's repurposing the same content. Other emails you need to have besides the welcome sequence, okay, we just talked about this, is your newsletter predictable content. That is like your regular based emails that keeps your audience engaged, builds rapport, versus where you tell stories, you provide real value. You could start with a weekly or a bi-monthly or bi-weekly, so twice a month. I always say that wrong. Once a week or twice a month. Just remember, don't load it up with too much content. Okay, that's one thing I do see a lot is their newsletter email will have so many things. You know, a section about this, a section about this, a section about this. No, you want to have one story solve one problem, and you can have one call to action in there as well. But your newsletter, your repeatable email should align with your social strategy, like we've talked about. The other thing that you want to have is a sales email campaign / launch sequence. Okay. So anytime you are going to a promotion phase, you want to create a campaign around that. And that should involve your emails and your social posts that are driving people to that very specific thing that you're launching or promoting. Maybe it's not a brand new launch, but it's something that you're focusing on right now. So let me use an example of, like, for us, we open social club 3 times a year. So we have a designated window of time where we go into campaign and launch sequence mode. When we are launching something new, we will actually pause our newsletter campaign just so people aren't getting too many emails from us, because they're going to get a lot during a launch sequence. Okay. So here's another pro tip on emails in general. Use a great subject line that catches attention. Okay. I love email, like I said, and I pay attention to emails that I get all the time. I'm constantly signing up for things, other people's programs. And what I do is I'll go to somebody else's website, I'll sign up for their program, and then I watch their email sequence that comes through. And I have little files saved in my email folder by their name so that I can see on this date I got this email, this date I got this email, and I can follow their sequences. I study those sequences because I love to see what actually worked. And if they got me to purchase something, I really pay attention. Like, when did I make the decision? What was it that actually pushed me over? Had I been thinking about it? And then, all those things. Like, I study the psychology of it as a consumer, but I also have a file folder in my inbox that says great subject lines. And anytime I get one that makes me want to open it because I love their subject line, I will save that. And I can't tell you how many times over the past decade, when I'm looking for a great subject line for either when I was at the magazine or when I was a business owner, where I've learned that I can go back to that subject line folder and get some great inspiration. And sometimes I've even used the same thing, because the subject line only kind of has something to do with what's in the email. Your subject line stands alone. And now we have ChatGPT that can help us write great subject lines too. But I always go to sendcheckit.com. There's some other great ones out there too. But I put my subject line into this little rater, if you will, and it will rate what's the percentage of, well, I don't even really know how to explain that. It's like, this one gets a score of this because it doesn't have any spam words, it has emojis, it's not all caps. It kind of teaches you what makes a good subject line, what words you should and shouldn't use, and also what you can add. Like, every time you do an emoji and a subject line, it gives it a higher score because it catches people's attention. So I love SendCheckit. And it always helps me spot, I used a spammy word. I didn't even realize that was a spammy word in the subject line. So this will really help you get better results for deliverables. So check that out. So bookmark that too. Okay. I mentioned this earlier, and I want to make sure that I do touch on this, because as a business owner, when I was at the magazine, we didn't have a lot of funnels. Okay. We were just more of constant kind of repeatable marketing. But as a business owner with Brooklyn and Next Chapter Social, we live in funnel and sequence world. Okay. We deliver a lot of lead gens. We then learn how to use funnels. And we're taking a big course right now where we're learning how to use the funnel. So stay tuned. We're going to be able to teach you a lot more about that. But one of the main things that you really need to know as a business owner, if you are a B2C or even a B2B business, is that you need to have a lead gen campaign, and it needs to be updated every now and then. You want to have something where people can opt into your list. So we teach you in a different class, and I just put them here so you can see what you need to look for. If you have ClassPass, you have access to these classes already. So go in there and watch these two, the lead gen campaign, and then delivering that lead magnet through an email sequence and marketing it on your socials. Okay. So all those things that we've talked about now to get them in their in your email list. If you need a deep dive into the step 1 and 2 to this step 3, go back to the online classes and watch them there. And again, like I said, if you have ClassPass, you've already got access to them. So simple, you guys. You're going to love this. You're going to feel like you are a grown-up when you have this mastered. Like, yes, I know exactly what I'm doing in business. Okay, so let's go back to the secret sauce when in creating great emails. Boring email overload is not what you want. That is rampant out there. So AI is great for like getting you started on ideas. So if you need a little bit of ideas on, like, let's say you put this social post together and you're like, I want to talk about that in email. You can go to AI and say, take this and write me a 2-paragraph email. And see if you like it. See what comes up, okay? You can use AI to kind of get you started. You can switch it up. You can tweak it then. But don't ever get into the idea that AI is going to replace you, because that just makes for a lot of boring content. Your content has to have genuinely engaging messaging that is extraordinary, unpredictable, memorable, and creates raving fans. So share lots of stories in emails. It's so important. And remember too that you can share an image. I wouldn't get too image heavy, because then what happens in the email world is if you have too many photos in your email, it gets heavy. Okay. And same, that's why you don't see a lot of video. Sometimes you see a video in there, but it does make it more heavy, and it will reduce your deliverability rate. Okay. GIFs is a good way to get like a little bit of movement in your email. You can use a lot of GIFs, but just have one image, one GIF, one video play that takes them to another site if that's really necessary. But you really want to keep it more relationship generating, nurturing them, using these emails to then build this relationship. So when you do an email sales sequence or a launch campaign, your people are already there. They're already at the bottom of the funnel, and they're ready. They're ready to go through that with you and ready to pay you to help them do whatever they can do, right? They want to work with you at that point. And email is just another really, really important layer to your social content to help you do that, to move them from followers to true fans and customers. Okay, I hope this helps. If you have any questions, of course, reach out to us and take those other 2 classes. It will really help you. And good luck. We can't wait to see what emails you put out.